preempt the President Obama's visit to Sub-Saharan Africa. As you well know, Africa is the second largest continent in the world and with a lot of potentials. Today we'll be looking at the significance of this visit, what it means to the Obama administration, and in fact what it also means to Africa. Joining me on my left is Francisco Bozano-Burns, a development expert who will be presenting some international perspectives in this conversation today. Francisco, you're welcome. And to my right is a New York-based attorney, Ngozi Okaro, who will be also providing some interesting perspectives on this important thing, probably also bringing some gender issues into the mix. And seated next to her is Ernest Opong. Ernest Opong is the editor-in-chief of our Mandela newspaper, actually a newspaper that focuses essentially on Africans in diaspora in the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut.
Of course, of colonial history and the fact that Europe is in crisis, which has been the traditional kind of major pool for Africa, and it's affecting many of countries such as South Africa. And also because Africa is growing second to Asia, and the world economy would do well if the United States saw an opportunity to invest in Africa and cooperate in Africa and help this process of growth to become an even more effective one. And it would be also very good from a point of view of multilateralism and the emancipation and democratization of Africa, because it would introduce multilateralism in a world in which it's really China who is taking over.
Well, like some of us know, the Obama administration just a couple of months ago released its policy towards Africa, what is called U.S. Strategic Partnership or Policy towards Sub-Saharan Africa. And most of them, the policy actually is anchored on 4 pillars: strengthening democratic institutions, trade and investment, and promoting opportunities for development and security issues. So, Ngozi, from your own perspective, how will you really, analyze the whole concept of Obama's policy towards Africa, given the trip he's really embarking upon and the possibility of actualizing some of those policies?
So, my sense of the trip is that compared to, I think that what this country, what Obama's electorate thinks of as our strategic interest in Africa, that the countries he's visiting don't necessarily align with that. If I think about it, if there's any money that's going to be spent by the United States government, it's going to be around terrorism and security. So, if in my mind, if his trip really represented what I think the people think the priorities are, it would be in Mali or in South Sudan or in northern Nigeria, any number of hotspots. And so I think that he is, really going out on a limb, reaching out, trying to say that there are some other priorities in going to these countries that don't necessarily pop to everyone's mind when we think of, the United States' interest in Africa. So I'm actually excited about the trip.
Good. Of course, from the perspective of the journalist, how would you really assess the way the international media has really reflected Obama's visit when you compare it with maybe when he's going to visit China or going to visit other regions of the world? Would you assess or see some comparison in terms of either the scale or is there any tipping point along the line?
Well, surely the tipping point here is that Obama's visit to Africa has not been giving the necessary media responses that they were supposed to receive. And I'm wondering, because here is a president who has an African heritage, one would think that with that at the hindsight, the media would very much focus on this particular trip, as his historical in all of these ramifications. And therefore, I'm even more surprised that the American media, you don't see much of it on TV, you don't read it much on the print media either. You know, I was trying to see if I could get something on the New York Times about the trip, and saw nothing about it. So I am quite, I'm surprised.
Actually, I'm really happy you're saying this, because this is part of the reason why, for example, CMPI and Congo Visions TV really are committed to really projecting this issue really to the front burner of international discourse.
But this is really reflecting the fact that you are born in Africa and so are you, and that most of the establishment is not. And this is what is new. And this is where the opportunity lies for this resource of diaspora journalists and scientists and thinkers and politicians and lawyers and activists to be tapped by the US in order to establish greater proximity to Africa and take into account the new frontiers of growth that we have. But apparently this is too creative for the capacity of the system, and I think we really have to move in to create those spaces of debate. And
well, but at the same time, I would rather say that it's not that it's too great for the capacity of the system. I think it is just a traditional, if I could use that, a traditional or the stereotypical attitude toward Africa by the Western media. I'm sorry to say that most of the time we bash Western media for its perspectives in Africa. Because, and it's true, there's nothing good they do show or write about Africa. I don't know if it's the same attitudes they have, but obviously there is, because if anything at all, this is a very historic visit. Whether or not Obama, whether or not he never had a black, an African antecedent, it's still historic. He's a black man. And a president of the United States visiting the continent.
Because I would like to comment really on the fact that
if I could finish,
okay,
because see, for the first time in his administration, he is giving more time to the continent. The first visit was a non-starter. He spent less than 24 hours, but this visit seems to be a bit more detailed. So we were thinking that the media here would actually discuss it and also would give it the responses they desire. So I think whichever way we look at it, yes, of course, there are so many things that are good, that are going to